It was late evening in a small city on the edge of the mountains when a boy named Liam sat alone on the cold pavement, hugging his backpack tight against his chest. He was 10 years old that day, but there was no cake, no gifts, and no warm bed. Waiting for him, the streetlights flickered overhead, casting long shadows on the cracked sidewalk where he had been sitting for hours. People passed him without really seeing him. Just another small figure lost in the city's restless noise. Earlier that morning, Liam's world had fallen apart. His mother, who had been fighting to keep them in a tiny apartment, finally lost her job at the diner. They packed what little they had into 2 bags, but by afternoon, she was gone too, taken away in an ambulance after collapsing at a bus stop. No family to call, no father to show up, just a scared boy with nowhere to go, clutching a single folded paper in his pocket that read, "Happy birthday, love mom." Liam's single quotes as stomach growled, but he ignored it. He had grown used to hunger. What hurt more was the ache in his chest, the voice that kept asking why no one cared enough to stop. Dozens of people had seen him there, but no one had asked him his name. No one asked if he was okay. They hurried past him, pulling their coats tight, pretending they didn't hear the soft sniffles of a child trying so hard not to cry. As the city grew darker, the night turned colder. Cars rushed by in streams of light and noise. Every time Liam heard footsteps, hope flared in his chest, only to be crushed when people looked away. He wiped his eyes on his sleeve, telling himself that crying was for babies. He was 10 now, old enough to survive alone, even if he didn't feel strong. Down the road, headlights grew brighter as a black motorcycle approached, engine humming like a quiet promise. The rider wore a plain helmet and a battered leather jacket. To any passerby, he was just another stranger passing through, but Liam barely noticed him. He had stopped believing anyone would care. The motorcycle slowed as it reached the curb where Liam sat. The rider's head turned, catching sight of the boy curled up by the bus stop bench. For a moment, the rider kept going, but then the brake lights flared. He pulled over, cutting the engine. The street fell silent except for the distant hum of traffic and Liam's small, shivering breaths. The rider took off his helmet, and under the flickering streetlight, Liam saw a kind face with tired eyes that somehow looked familiar. But he didn't dare believe what his eyes were telling him. He hugged his backpack tighter, shrinking into the bench. The man, Keanu Reeves, stepped closer, moving slowly so he wouldn't scare the boy. His voice, when he finally spoke, was so gentle that it broke right through the noise in Liam's head. "Hey, buddy, are you okay out here all alone?" Liam wanted to speak, but the words stuck in his throat. He nodded, then shook his head, not sure which was true anymore. Keanu crouched down, lowering himself to Liam's eye level. He noticed the birthday card peeking from the boy's pocket, the torn edge where it had been folded and refolded 1,000 times. "Is it your birthday today?" Keanu asked, his voice soft but steady. Liam hesitated, then whispered, "Yeah." Keanu's eyes softened even more. He could feel the weight behind that small word, the loneliness, the fear, the questions no 10-year-old should have to answer. Alone on a cold sidewalk, he took off his gloves, tucking them into his pocket before reaching into his jacket for something. Liam flinched when Keanu moved closer, but the man simply pulled out a small chocolate bar, something he'd grabbed from a gas station earlier in the day. He handed it to the boy like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Happy birthday, Liam," Keanu said, somehow knowing his name without asking. Liam's eyes widened. No one had said his name all day. He took the chocolate with trembling fingers, staring at it like it was gold. For a moment, the ache in his chest eased just a little. "You shouldn't be out here alone," Keanu said gently. "Where's your mom, buddy?" Liam's lip quivered. He couldn't say it. The words were too heavy, but Keanu read the silence. Like an open book, the empty backpack, the dirt on the boy's shoes, the way his shoulders shook even though he tried to look brave. Keanu looked around. The street was still empty. No police, no social worker, no good Samaritan. Just him and this boy and a night that had grown too cold for a child to face alone. Without another word, Keanu sat down next to Liam on the bench, ignoring the damp chill that soaked through his jeans. He didn't try to touch him, didn't crowd him with questions. He just sat there, sharing the silence, letting the boy feel, maybe for the first time all day, that he wasn't invisible. Minutes passed. Liam unwrapped the chocolate, nibbling the corner as if he was afraid it might disappear. Keanu glanced at his bike, then back at the boy. He knew that riding off would be easier. No headlines, no problems, no responsibility. But he also knew he wouldn't be able to sleep that night if he left Liam behind. Keanu leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "You know," he said, his tone soft but carrying the weight of something true. "When I was a kid, I was alone a lot too. It's scary. But you know what? One person can make it better. Just one." Liam looked at him, eyes big and wet. "Like who?" Keanu smiled, a tired, hopeful smile. "Like you and me, maybe tonight. We can be that one person for each other." Liam didn't answer. He didn't have to. The way he leaned just a little closer told Keanu everything. They sat like that for a long time, two strangers on a cold bench, sharing warmth that had nothing to do with blankets or buildings. And somewhere deep inside Liam's heart, a tiny light flickered back to life, a hope that maybe, just maybe, someone did care. The night grew colder as the streetlights flickered overhead, and Liam leaned into the warmth coming off Keanu's leather jacket. He didn't say much. He didn't know how. But sitting there next to someone who didn't look away when he spoke made him feel like maybe he wasn't lost forever. The chocolate bar in his hand was half-eaten now. The sweet taste, a small comfort that felt like a promise he could hold. Keanu stayed quiet for a while too, watching the cars pass by with a thoughtful look in his eyes. Every few minutes, he would glance down at Liam to make sure the boy hadn't drifted too far into his own worry again. He could tell this child had learned too young how to shut down his feelings, how to hide the tears when there was no one around to wipe them away. After a while, Keanu asked, "Liam, do you have anywhere to go tonight?" Liam shook his head, his eyes fixed on the chocolate like he could disappear inside it. "No place." He said softly, "Mom's sick. They took her. I waited, but she didn't come back." Keanu's heart squeezed in his chest. He had seen too much loneliness in his life, had felt it in his bones when he was just a boy, alone in hotel rooms and waiting rooms, hearing other kids laugh with their families while he wondered if anyone really knew he was there. Looking at Liam now felt like looking at his younger self, just another kid who needed someone to remind him he mattered. "I'm sorry, buddy," Keanu said gently. "That's a lot for you to carry alone." Liam shrugged, as if he'd already learned to accept that life didn't owe him comfort. "It's okay." But Keanu knew it wasn't okay. No child should sit on a sidewalk on his birthday, alone and hungry, while the world pretended not to see him. He thought about the small hotel room he had booked a few miles away, a place he had planned to rest for a few days while shooting wrapped up on his latest film. It was nothing fancy, just quiet, private, warm. Maybe tonight it could be more than that. "Hey," Keanu said, leaning closer, his voice careful so he wouldn't scare the boy. "How about this? You come with me, just for tonight. I'll get you some food, a warm bed, and tomorrow we'll figure out how to find your mom. No tricks, no lies, just a safe place to sleep." Liam tensed. Strangers always wanted something. He had heard the stories, the warnings. His mom had taught him not to trust people who promised too much. But something in Keanu's eyes made him pause. There was no greed there, no threat. Just the kind of calm honesty that made Liam's shoulders lower just a little. "What if you're lying?" Liam asked, his voice cracking. "What if you're like the others?" Keanu nodded like he understood, because he did. "You're right to be careful. So here's the deal. You don't have to come with me if you don't want to. But if you do, I'll let you pick where we eat. I'll stay right by your side. You can hold my keys if you want." Liam's small hands gripped his backpack tighter. He thought about the cold pavement, about the empty dark that waited for him if he said no. He thought about his mom, always telling him that sometimes you had to trust the right person at the right time. "Okay," Liam whispered. "But can I hold your keys?" Keanu laughed, soft and warm. He dug into his pocket and handed over the big key ring, keys for the motorcycle, the hotel room, and a tiny metal charm shaped like a dog's paw. These are yours until you feel safe." Liam held the keys like a shield. They felt heavy and real in his pocket, something he could hold onto if he got scared. "Let's get out of here, birthday boy," Keanu said, standing up and pulling his helmet back on. "How do you feel about pancakes at midnight?" Liam's eyes widened. He hadn't had pancakes since his last birthday with his mom, when she scraped together enough change to buy him a single stack at the diner where she worked. The thought of warm food made his stomach ache with hope. Keanu looked at the small boy, his tiny shoulders weighed down by a backpack that held everything he owned. Then he crouched down again. "You can ride on the back with me. I'll go slow, promise." Liam hesitated, then nodded. When Keanu helped him climb onto the bike, he could feel the boy's tiny hands clutching the sides tight. The keys still safely tucked in his pocket, they pulled away from the curb, the motorcycle rumbling softly as they slipped through the sleeping streets, a quiet promise carrying them forward. Liam didn't know what waited at the end of that ride. He didn't know if tomorrow would be any kinder than today, but for the first time in a long time, the cold didn't feel so scary, and the night didn't feel so empty, because someone had stopped, someone had seen him, and that tiny hope was enough to keep Liam's eyes wide open to the world again, at least for tonight. The motorcycle rumbled softly through the empty city streets, weaving past rows of shuttered shops and quiet houses where warm lights still glowed behind curtains. Liam pressed his cheek against Keanu's back, his small fingers clutching the edge of Keanu's jacket. The keys in his pocket felt like a secret shield, proof that this wasn't just another broken promise. The wind bit at his ears, but for the first time all day, he didn't feel invisible. Keanu kept his speed slow, careful not to frighten the boy. Every now and then, he glanced in the side mirror to catch a glimpse of Liam's small hands gripping the seams of his coat. The city that usually felt so big and lonely seemed smaller tonight, like it could be gentle if only someone would slow down long enough to see the people hiding in its shadows. When they pulled into the old pancake diner on the corner of Maple and Fifth, Liam's eyes grew wide. The neon sign flickered, buzzing softly in the cold air. It wasn't fancy, cracked windows, rusty chairs, and a flickering open all-night sign, but to Liam, it looked like a castle lit up just for him. Keanu killed the engine and turned to look at him. "You ready?" he asked. Liam nodded shyly, hopping off the bike. He held the keys out, but Keanu pushed his hand back gently. "Keep them until you feel safe inside." The diner was warm and smelled like burnt coffee, syrup, and fried bacon. A waitress with kind eyes looked up in surprise when she saw Keanu with the boy. Her name tag read Sandra. She was older, with gray hair pulled into a bun and an apron covered in tiny coffee stains. She gave Liam a soft smile. "Late night breakfast?" she asked. Keanu nodded. "Pancakes, big ones. It's his birthday." Sandra's eyes widened. She looked at Liam with that same kindness Keanu did, the kind that made Liam's chest ache, because he'd missed it so much. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," she said gently. "Sit anywhere you like." Liam slid into a booth near the window, his backpack tucked tight beside him. Keanu sat across from him, leaning back and studying the boy like he was trying to learn every piece of his story, without making him say too much. Sandra brought them water and 2 mugs of hot cocoa, topped with whipped cream, that melted too fast but still made Liam smile for the first time all day. "So," Keanu said, stirring his cocoa, "when you make a birthday wish, what do you wish?" For Liam stared at his mug, thinking. He had never told anyone his wishes. Mom always said you had to keep them secret or they wouldn't come true. But looking at Keanu now, he felt like maybe saying it out loud wouldn't break the magic. I wish my mom was okay," Liam whispered. "And I wish people would see me." Keanu nodded slowly, his eyes warm and sad all at once. "That's a good wish, buddy. I see you. And we'll find your mom." "Okay, one step at a time," Sandra returned, with 2 giant plates of pancakes, steam rising off the fluffy stacks. Liam's eyes lit up. He picked up his fork and hesitated, waiting for someone to tell him he needed to be quick, to hurry, to finish before someone took it away. But Keanu just sat there, sipping his cocoa. letting Liam eat as slow as he wanted. For a while, they didn't talk. They just shared the small warmth of the booth, the clatter of the diner's old kitchen, the quiet hum of people coming and going. Outside, the city's cold edge felt far away, pushed back by the smell of syrup and the low murmur of old songs playing on the radio. When Liam had eaten every bite, he leaned back with a sleepy sigh. His eyelids drooped. He looked younger now, just a boy who wanted to rest without fear. Keanu paid the bill, leaving Sandra a tip big enough to make her eyes widen in surprise. She didn't say anything, but she slipped a paper bag with 2 muffins into Keanu's hand before they left. "For tomorrow," she whispered, glancing at Liam. "That boy deserves more good mornings." Keanu thanked her, then walked Liam back to the motorcycle. He could feel the boy's weight leaning against him, the exhaustion finally pulling at his small frame now that the hunger had eased. When they reached the bike, Liam didn't let go of his hand. "Where are we going now?" Liam asked, his voice a soft mumble. "Somewhere warm," Keanu said. "A place with a real bed. I've got a hotel room. You can have the bed. I'll sleep in the chair." Liam looked at him, frowning. "But it's your bed." Keanu smiled, ruffling his messy hair. "Beds don't matter when someone needs them more." The ride to the hotel was quiet. Liam fought to stay awake, his head bobbing against Keanu's back. When they arrived, Keanu parked the bike, scooped Liam's backpack onto his shoulder, and led him inside through the side entrance to avoid the curious eyes in the lobby. The desk clerk glanced up, ready to question him, but one look at Keanu's calm face and the small boy holding his hand, and she said nothing at all. Inside the room, Liam's eyes widened at the sight of the big, clean bed, the soft blankets, the warmth that wrapped around him like an invisible hug. Keanu handed him a fresh pair of socks he had found in his bag, way too big, but they made Liam laugh for the first time all night. "You can sleep as long as you want," Keanu said, pulling an extra blanket from the closet. "No one's gonna wake you up." Liam sat on the edge of the bed, his backpack still clutched tight. "You promise?" Keanu crouched in front of him, his voice steady, no hint of lies. "I promise," Liam nodded, crawling under the covers with the keys still hidden in his pocket. Keanu turned off the lights, settling into the old armchair by the window. He watched the city lights flicker far below, the soft sound of Liam's breathing filling the quiet room as the boy drifted into sleep. Keanu whispered to the darkness, "Just one night safe. Tomorrow we find his mom. Tomorrow we make it better." But deep down, he knew this was bigger than one night, bigger than a warm bed or a pancake breakfast. It was a promise he would keep, no matter how long it took. Because sometimes, one person stopping is all it takes to change everything. The sun rose slowly over the city, slipping through the hotel window in soft streaks of gold and orange. Liam lay curled under the thick blanket, his hair sticking out in every direction. His small face finally relaxed in deep sleep. For the first time in days, he didn't wake to the sound of sirens or the ache of a cold sidewalk pressing into his bones. He was warm. He was safe. Keanu sat in the armchair by the window, still wearing the same clothes from the night before. He hadn't slept. He didn't want to. Every time he closed his eyes, he pictured Liam shivering alone at that bus stop, clutching that crumpled birthday card like it was the only piece of love he had left. So Keanu watched instead, watched the slow rise and fall of the boy's shoulders, listened to the small sighs that drifted out when Liam dreamed. He thought of his own childhood, all the nights he'd spent in places that didn't feel like home, the nights when he'd have given anything for someone to sit in a corner, just to make sure he woke up safe. And now, decades later, here he was, the man who could do for someone else what he wished someone had done for him. Around 7, Liam stirred, blinking at the unfamiliar ceiling. For a moment, fear flickered across his face. Then he saw Keanu by the window, and that fear melted like snow under sunlight. He pushed himself up on his elbows, the blanket bunched around his small shoulders. "You didn't sleep?" Liam asked, his voice rough from dreams. Keanu shook his head, a soft smile on his tired face. "Wasn't tired. Did you sleep okay?" Liam nodded slowly, hugging the blanket to his chest. "Yeah. Best sleep ever." Keanu chuckled. Good. We'll get you some breakfast soon. I brought you something. He reached into the paper bag Sandra had given him at the diner, pulling out the 2 muffins. One for now, one for later. Liam grinned, his eyes brighter than they'd been in days. He bit into the muffin, crumbs spilling onto the blanket. He didn't care. It tasted like hope. Like maybe today could be different from yesterday, Liam. Keanu said after a few minutes, his voice careful but firm. We need to find your mom. I promise I'll help you, but I need you to tell me everything you remember. Where did the ambulance take her? Did they say what hospital? Liam swallowed hard, setting the half-eaten muffin in his lap. They said Mercy General. She was really tired. She fell asleep waiting for the bus. She wouldn't wake up. His voice cracked on the last words, and he looked down at his small hands. Keanu crossed the room and sat beside him on the edge of the bed. He didn't rush Liam or press for more. He just rested a hand on the boy's shoulder, letting him know he didn't have to hold the fear alone. We'll go there, Keanu said softly. We'll find her, but I need you to stay close to me, okay? No wandering off. We stick together. Liam nodded, a spark of something stronger than fear in his eyes now, trust. He stuffed the muffin back into his backpack and grabbed Keanu's keys from the nightstand, still holding onto them like a promise. Can I keep these a little longer? He asked. Keanu smiled, ruffling his hair. As long as you want. They cleaned up quickly. Liam splashed water on his face in the small hotel bathroom, staring at himself in the mirror like he didn't quite recognize the boy looking back. When he came out, Keanu handed him an extra hoodie from his bag. It was way too big, but Liam pulled it on and pushed the sleeves up past his fingers. For the first time, he looked like any other kid, not a homeless boy on a cold street, but a boy with a warm breakfast, a soft bed, and a grown-up who didn't look away. Outside, the city was waking up. People rushed by with coffee cups and hurried steps, horns blaring in the distance. Keanu and Liam walked side by side, the small backpack bouncing against Liam's back. When they reached the hospital entrance, Liam's steps slowed. Fear crept back in, wrapping itself around his small shoulders. What if she's not there? Liam whispered, his eyes wide. Then we keep looking, Keanu said, squeezing his hand. We don't give up. Inside, the hospital smelled like antiseptic and stale coffee. Nurses moved like shadows down the bright white halls. At the front desk, Keanu leaned in and spoke with the receptionist, his tone calm but firm. Liam stood close to his side, so close their shoulders touched. Mercy General, how can I help you? The nurse asked. Hi, Keanu said, his voice steady but warm. This boy's mother was brought in last night. Her name's Sarah Moore. She collapsed at the bus stop on Main Street. Is she here? The nurse typed on her keyboard, her eyes flicking between the screen and the boy. Liam held his breath so tight it made his chest hurt. After a moment, the nurse's eyes softened. She's in room 214. She's stable but needs rest. Only family can visit. Keanu leaned down so he could look Liam in the eye. You ready to see your mom? Liam nodded. His hands trembled, but he didn't pull back when Keanu gently took them in his own. The walk down the hall felt like forever. Every squeak of the linoleum floor made Liam's heart pound harder. When they reached the door, Keanu paused, giving Liam the chance to breathe. You want me to go in with you? He asked. Liam nodded, pressing closer to Keanu's side. Together, they stepped into the small, quiet room. The woman on the bed looked pale and tired, but her chest rose and fell steadily under the thin blanket. Her hair was messy, her cheeks sunken from nights spent skipping meals for her boy. But when her eyes fluttered open and fell on Liam, a small, broken smile spread across her face. Baby, she whispered. Liam let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He dropped his backpack and ran to her side, burying his face in her blanket. She reached out a shaky hand, tangling her fingers in his hair, holding him like she would never let him go. Keanu stayed by the door, quiet, giving them the moment they deserved. But when Sarah looked up at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears, she mouthed one word that said everything. Thank you. Keanu just nodded, a warmth spreading through his tired bones. He knew this wasn't over, not yet. There would be bills, paperwork, questions about what would happen next. But for now, Liam wasn't alone. His mother wasn't alone. And maybe that was the greatest gift one stranger could give another. Because sometimes one person stopping to see you was enough to change your whole story. The hospital room was small and quiet except for the soft beeping of the monitor by Sarah's bed. Liam lay curled up next to her, his head resting on her arm like he was afraid she might disappear if he let go. Sarah's thin fingers brushed through his tangled hair, her touch gentle but shaky. She looked so tired, her eyes sunken with worry and days of hunger. But there was relief there too, a tiny flicker of hope that hadn't existed the night before. Keanu sat in the chair near the door, watching them like a quiet guardian. He knew what came next wouldn't be easy, getting Sarah healthy again, finding a place for her and Liam to stay, making sure they weren't left to sleep on benches and bus stops again. He'd seen enough of the world to know that kindness was only the first step. Real change took patience, work, and more compassion than most people had to give. Sarah turned her head to look at him. Her voice cracked when she spoke. "Why did you stop?" she asked. Her question wasn't angry. It was the voice of a mother who'd stopped expecting strangers to care a long time ago. Keanu leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. "Because I saw him," he said simply, "and I know what it's like to feel invisible." Sarah's eyes filled with tears she couldn't hide. She pressed a soft kiss to the top of Liam's head. "I was so scared he'd be alone," she whispered. "I tried so hard to keep him safe." "You did," Keanu said, his voice warm but steady. "You kept him strong enough to wait for you." "That's not nothing." A soft knock at the door made all three of them look up. A young social worker peeked inside. Her clipboard hugged tight to her chest. Her badge said Emily. She looked nervous, like she had been bracing herself for a difficult conversation. "Mr. Reeves," she said, her eyes flicking between him and Sarah. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Keanu stood and stepped into the hallway with her. The door clicked shut behind them. Emily looked up at him with wide, tired eyes. "I know who you are," she said, almost like an apology. "The nurses are buzzing about it. I wanted to thank you. Most people don't stop. No one should have to sleep on the street on their birthday," Keanu said, his voice low but firm. Emily nodded. She flipped through the papers on her clipboard. "We can get Sarah the care she needs here for a few more days, but she can't stay forever. They don't have anywhere to go, no family, no steady work. It's going to take time to get housing support. And until then," Keanu didn't wait for her to finish, "I'll cover it. Whatever they need until there's a real place for them. Just tell me what I have to sign." Emily's eyes went wide. "Are you sure? It could be weeks, maybe more." Keanu shrugged lightly. "So it'll be weeks. Money's meant for this, to help people stand up again. I'm not letting him go back to that bench." Emily closed her eyes for a second, like she was holding back tears of her own. "He's lucky you stopped." Keanu looked through the small window in the door. Liam had drifted off to sleep again, his tiny hand clutching his mother's fingers, like a lifeline. "Maybe I'm the lucky one," Keanu murmured. "I needed to remember that one person can still make a difference." When he stepped back inside, Sarah tried to sit up, but the effort made her wince. "You don't have to do this," she said. "We'll figure something out. We always do." Keanu shook his head. "You shouldn't have to fight so hard alone. You shouldn't have to teach your son how to be invisible. You both deserve better." Sarah's voice broke. Why us?" Keanu thought about all the people he had seen pass Liam by the night before. The ones who turned their heads, who kept their eyes on their phones, who walked faster when they felt that tug in their hearts. He thought about how easy it was to pretend not to see. He thought about his mother, who always told him kindness is the only wealth you get to keep forever, because you're worth it. He said simply, he's worth it. The days that followed felt like a slow dawn breaking. After a long, dark night, Keanu didn't just pay for the hospital. He visited every day, bringing Liam his favorite muffins and sitting by Sarah's bed while she rested. He spoke with the doctors, the nurses, the social workers, asking the questions Sarah was too exhausted to ask. When Liam got restless, Keanu would take him downstairs to the hospital cafe, let him order extra chocolate milk, and listened to him talk about the little dreams he still kept tucked away. One night, after everyone else had gone home, Liam sat beside Keanu in the quiet hospital hallway. He pulled the keys from his pocket and held them out with a small, shaky smile. "You can have these back now," Liam said. "I feel safe." Keanu's throat tightened. He took the keys but pressed a tiny metal keychain, the dog paw charm, into Liam's palm instead. "Keep this, so you remember that you're never invisible." Liam closed his fingers around it, holding it like a piece of magic that could never be stolen. Inside the room, Sarah watched them through the cracked door, tears slipping down her cheeks. She knew they still had a long road ahead. The world didn't change overnight, but maybe, just maybe, it was enough to know they didn't have to walk that road alone anymore. And for Keanu, the soft warmth in his chest told him this was why he'd stopped. This was why one simple choice, one pull of the brake on a lonely street, could change to lives forever, because sometimes the smallest acts of kindness made you feel richer than any fortune ever could. Days turned into weeks, but the tiny hospital room never felt empty again. Even when nurses came and went, even when the machines beeped inside, there was always warmth there now, a quiet, stubborn warmth that came from the simple truth that Sarah and Liam were no longer alone. Every morning, Keanu showed up with a bag of fresh breakfast pastries and a warm smile that made the exhausted nurses shake their heads in disbelief. People whispered about him in the halls, but he didn't care. He didn't come for the attention. He came because Liam's small voice still echoed in his head. "What if people could really see me?" Keanu knew he couldn't fix the world in a week. He couldn't erase the years of fear that had settled in Sarah's bones, or wipe away the memories of nights when Liam curled up on park benches, pretending they were adventures instead of survival. But he could show them that not every stranger walked by without caring. He could prove that some people stopped, some people stayed. One afternoon, Sarah sat up in bed for the first time without help. Her hair was clean, her cheeks a little fuller. She was still weak, but her eyes looked different now, not so beaten down by life's cold corners. She watched Liam sitting on the floor, playing with a battered puzzle someone had left at the nurse's station. Keanu was beside her, reading the discharge papers, his brow furrowed like he was studying for an exam. Sarah reached out, laying her hand over his. "You've done enough," she whispered. "You've done more than enough." Keanu looked at her, a small smile tugging at his tired face. "Kindness doesn't have an enough," he said softly. "Not when it comes to family." The word family made Sarah's eyes fill with tears. She hadn't felt like she had one in so long. When you lived in shelters and bus stops, home was just an idea. But now, looking at Liam, and then at the man who had stopped that night when no one else did, she felt something she hadn't dared to feel in years, rooted. Like she could plant herself somewhere and grow again. The day she was released from the hospital, Keanu was waiting at the doors with Liam, who was bouncing on his toes with excitement. The social worker, Emily, was there too, holding a folder full of paperwork and phone numbers and words like temporary housing and job referrals. Sarah's head spun with it all, but Keanu's hand on her shoulder steadied her. "You're not doing this alone," he reminded her. "We're right here." Liam held up the tiny metal dog paw charm, now strung onto a piece of string like a necklace. "Look what I made," he said proudly. "So I don't forget." "Forget what?" Sarah asked, brushing his hair back. "That I'm not invisible anymore," Liam said. "That someone sees me." Sarah pulled him into a hug so tight that he squeaked, but he laughed anyway, his giggles echoing through the bright hospital lobby. People passing by turned to look, not in pity, but in quiet awe. It was impossible to ignore the glow that came from this small, battered family standing in the middle of the world refusing to break. When they stepped outside, the sun was high and warm, and for a moment, Sarah tipped her head back to feel it on her face. She'd spent so long hiding in the shadows, but today, she let the light touch every scar, every crack. She didn't have to hide anymore. Keanu walked them to a small car waiting at the curb. Not his motorcycle this time. Liam had asked for something that felt safer, and Keanu had listened. Sarah slid into the back seat with her son, wrapping her arms around him as if she could shield him from every storm still waiting. Before the door closed, Keanu crouched down to Liam's level. "You remember what we talked about, right?" he asked. Liam nodded fiercely. "One person can change everything. And what are you gonna do when you see someone like you someday?" Liam's eyes shone, bright and unafraid. "I'll stop. I'll help." Keanu ruffled his hair, fighting the lump in his throat. "Good man." The car pulled away, taking Sarah and Liam toward the first real home they'd had in years, a small apartment Emily had found, paid up for 3 months with extra help from Keanu. It wasn't forever, it wasn't a mansion, but it was a start. And sometimes, a safe place to sleep is the greatest gift you can give someone who has learned to fear the night. As the car turned the corner, Liam pressed his hand to the window, palm open. Like a promise, Keanu raised his own hand in return, a quiet vow that he would always carry their story with him. He stood on the sidewalk long after the car was gone, feeling the sun on his face, the street humming with life around him. People rushed by with coffees and headphones, eyes locked on their phones. But somewhere out there, one boy would remember that night when the world was cold and dark, and one stranger stopped, turned around, and changed everything with just a single moment of kindness. And maybe, just maybe, that boy would grow up to do the same for someone else, because sometimes the smallest act, a chocolate bar, a warm bed, a hand held out in the dark, is enough to remind someone they are not invisible. Sometimes that is all it takes to make the world feel a little more like home.